senior GOP leader spoke privately about Trump being on Kremlin payroll. And other leaders didn't disagree, according to former leadership staffer and CIA officer who ran against Trump. Evan McMullin, who failed in his independent presidential bid to beat Donald Trump in Utah, has penned an op-ed where he says a Republican congressional leader wondered in a closed setting whether Trump was an agent of Russia. McMullin, who has poked at Trump in television interviews during the campaign and since his improbable win, made the stunning claim in an opinion article in the New York Times where he called Republican leaders to account for not doing enough to counteract Trump. In the piece, McMullin, who was policy director for the House Republican Conference, references a time in the campaign when Trump made a series of complimentary statements about Russian President Vladimir Putin and praised the strongman's leadership. Suspect public comments like these led one senior Republican leader to dolefully inform his peers that he thought Mr. Trump was on the Kremlin's payroll, suggesting that Mr. Trump had been compromised by Russian intelligence, McMullin wrote. Other leaders were surprised by their colleagues' frank assessment, but did not dispute it. McMullin did not reveal the location of the startling statement, or say who else was present. One possibility is that it came up at a weekly meeting of elected House leaders. McMullin, who got 21% of the vote in his native Utah, missing out on the chance to beat Trump, who more than doubled him there, faulted GOP leaders for failing to confront Trump. Some, he wrote, were anxious to recapture the White House to advance their policy goals. Others saw career opportunities in supporting Mr. Trump, who had yet to select a running mate and, if elected, would also make cabinet appointments, he said. Then, without naming names, he hinted that some of those who had warned about Trump became vocal supporters. Shockingly, some of the leaders most concerned about Russian subversion and Mr. Trump's possible compromise were his first and most vocal supporters among congressional leaders, some publicly, some privately, he wrote. It was an inauspicious trade of national security for political self-preservation and partisan ambition, he wrote. McMullin expresses some disillusionment, because early in 2015, senior Republican congressional leaders visited Ukraine and returned full of praise for its fight for independence in spite of Russia's efforts to destabilize the country and annex some of its regions. And in June, coincidentally just before Mr. Trump announced his campaign for the Republican nomination, they met with Ukraine's Prime Minister in Washington, one of many meetings I attended as a senior aide to the House Republican Conference, he continued. McMullin also spent 10 years in the CIA, stationed in a Southwest Asian country and in Iraq. McMullin's piece does not mention the names of other congressional leaders. It seems unlikely he would be referring to Speaker Paul Ryan, who replaced John Boehner in the fall of 2015. McMullin had a famously arm's-length relationship with Trump during the campaign, saying he was not ready to support him at one point and later disinviting Trump from a Wisconsin campaign rally. One leader who enthusiastically advocated for Trump's election is Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy of California. He was part of a congressional delegation that met with Ukrainian leaders in Kiev in March of 2015, and who has taken an issue in Russian aggression. McCarthy blasted Russia in a speech before the John Hay Initiative in 2015, where he spoke about his trips to Eastern Europe, although he committed a slip of the tongue. In the past few years alone, I have visited Poland, Hungary, Estonia, Russia and Georgia. McCarthy said, misstating the name of Hungary while engaging in tough talk against Russia, Salon reported at the time. It defies belief that the president would allow the ban on Iranian oil exports to be lifted. And also stand by while Russia blackmails an entire continent, all the while keeping the place of the ban on America. McCarthy went after Russia on Twitter in August, writing, "Report indicates Russia has killed more innocent civilians in Syria in 1 year than ISIS has in 3. In May of 2016, McCarthy signed up to be a delegate for Donald Trump, at a time when Ryan was still not ready to get on board. As Politico noted earlier this month, When other Republicans were anxious about Trump, McCarthy talked up his chances. Trump's message: "If you look at different pockets, he brings Democrats over," he told a policy forum in Sacramento. Trump talked up McCarthy at an inaugural brunch. "Kevin would call me in the heat of battle, right Kevin? And I'd be fighting with Paul. And I appreciate it, Kevin," Trump said. A leadership source told DailyMail.com, "I don't know which member Evan is referring to specifically, but by late summer 2016 to the end of the campaign you heard such talk in GOP circles more frequently, albeit quietly." House Majority Whip Steve Scalise of Louisiana wrote in an August op-ed about Trump, "Donald Trump brings the leadership and experience to get our country moving." Scalise issued a statement strongly supporting a resolution in favor of providing arms to Ukraine to protect its sovereignty. When Ukrainian President Poroshenko addressed Congress in September, he asked the United States to help defend their people and their democratically elected government from the aggression Vladimir Putin and his Russian-backed separatists, Scalise said in the statement. Unfortunately, his words fell on deaf ears at the White House. Today's vote reaffirms Congress' steadfast support for the people of Ukraine, and shows our commitment to their military and the need for additional economic pressure on Russia. President Obama needs to act quickly. If not, the conflict will only intensify and continue to destabilize the region. It is critical that the United States step up and help Ukraine combat the growing threat of Russia's continued aggression in Eastern Europe. Aides to McCarthy, Speaker Paul Ryan, and Scalise didn't immediately respond to inquiries. The fourth-ranking member of the GOP leadership, Cathy McMorris Rodgers, is a woman, and wouldn't fit McMullen's description.